How have American demographic and geographic trends changed in the past 20 years? There's a variety of ways in which America has changed demographically and geographically in the last 20 years that have sent things in a more progressive direction. One of the biggest changes is the decline of the white working class, which is the most conservative element of the population, really. According to exit poll data, the percent of white working class voters is down 15 points in the last 20 years, whereas minority voters who lean pretty heavily progressive are up 11 points, and white college graduates who have been shifting progressive rapidly in the last couple of decades, they're up 4 points. So that's a big change. Other changes that are important are the professionals, which is a growing occupational group, have shifted pretty heavily toward progressives. Single women, another growing group, has shifted toward progressives. And of course, there's this burgeoning millennial generation, which is adding about 4 million people to the eligible voter pool every year. These are people born after 1978. They're very heavily progressive. As we saw in the last election, they voted 66 to 32 for Barack Obama. So those are just some of the changes that in a demographic sense are making the country much more progressive. Why has the United States become more progressive? There's a lot of demographic trends that are reducing the influence of less progressive groups in the population, increasing the weight of more progressive groups. But it's not just all about demographics. A lot is about how the sort of conservative worldview and policies have really become discredited by what's happened in the last period of time, particularly, of course, in the last 8 years. The American public, American voters, are just becoming increasingly convinced that you can't really solve America's problems just by turning everything over to the free market, that in fact there are problems where only government can really make the difference in terms of solving those problems. So as compared to the Reagan era, when government was viewed as the problem, not the solution, we now are moving into an era where increasingly government is viewed as a potential solution for a lot of our problems. Back in the 80s, the Reaganites and the Thatcherites said there is no alternative to the free market. They called it TINA, T-I-N-A. Well, there's a new TINA today, and that's that sometimes there's no alternative to the government if you want to deal with the problems the country faces and the need to sort of make the economy work so it sort of broadly benefits most people. I think people are increasingly coming to see that as something that only government can address. What do these trends say about what we should expect in the next 20 years? It's difficult to make predictions, especially about the future, but if we look at these demographic trends and how they're unfolding, you don't see very much that actually strengthens the conservatives' case or the conservatives' prospects. Pretty much all the demographic trends are going to continue moving in progressive direction for the next 20 years. Just as one obvious example, we're going to become an increasingly diverse society over time. By the year 2023, the majority of children will be minorities, people under 18. By the year 2042, we'll be a majority minority nation. So these things are just going to continue apace. The white working class, which, as I mentioned, is the most culturally conservative, generally conservative element of the population, we're going to see their numbers continue to decline, their weight in the population continue to decrease. We're going to see continuing increases in the proportion of single women. We're going to see the millennial generation, as I mentioned earlier, adding about 4 million eligible voters to the voter pool every year until the year 2018. So I think if you put these things together, as well as with hopefully successes that progressives will have in governance and actually making the country a better place, I think you put those two things together, and at least the potential is there for a durable and pretty strong progressive majority looking pretty far out into the future.